Okay, can board members take their seats? We have a lot of work to do here, and we got to do it in a short period of time. So I'm going to ask during these deliberations to keep your comments short and sweet. I'm only going to go to each person once on a comment on a particular motion. Yesterday we left off, we were on issue 5. We had a motion on the board, which I hope Kate can get up there. That was, we were going to withdraw it, but there was an objection from the Bali Politic to withdraw it, so we're going to vote on it as is. All right, once we get that motion up, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just have a public service announcement. Don't order the fried pickles at the bar.
I don't know if I'd order the fried pickles even if before you made that comment. Okay, we have this motion on the board. Is there any need to discuss this at the caucus? Seeing none? Okay, I'll read it. Move to add an option to reduce the Chesapeake Bay recreational quota to account for the required reduction. Motion by Mr. O'Reilly and seconded by Mr. O'Connell. You ready to vote? All states in favor, raise your right hand. Oh, shit. Okay. All in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Motion carries 12-3. Any other items on issue number 5, recreational size limits? Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the end of the day yesterday, you asked us to reflect on where we were and where we might need to go. It seemed to me that with all the different combinations of slot limits and maximums and minimums, that maybe it'd be most helpful if we put together a table that showed a wide variety of options of slots and what you got for them with a two-fish bag, and that would inform the public and us, frankly, when we come back, about what the most suitable options might be.
Any discussion on that? Yeah, Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And along with that suggestion, maybe we could also ask the TC and PDT and staff to think about the question I asked yesterday about which, if any, of those options might be, most likely to achieve our management objectives of protecting the 2011 year class and, maximizing the protection for the remaining SSB that's out there.
I think that can be added in, right? Yeah. Yeah, that can certainly be added in. Any further comment on the wide variety of slot limit options? My concern with that is that we have infinite options here, and that can be also very distracting to the public trying to focus in on an option unless we give them a preferred option. Richie, and then Steve, and then...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess for Katie, how much work is involved and how much time is involved in working each slot option? Is it as simple as once you do one, you just plug in the others and it's easy, or is each one difficult and time-consuming in its own right? And then I have a follow-up after that.
We've done the, up on the board actually is the slot limit analysis that's been done already. So in terms of doing, in terms of trying to figure out two fish in a slot limit, we've already done a lot of the tweaking of the possible options, and that's done. The more complicated issue is trying to figure out how you allocate that bag limit between two different size classes. So that's going to require a lot more work to go back and redo how we do these analyses. So it would have to be a completely different approach using slightly different data sources. So I can't say how long it's going to be, but it's definitely more work than we've done so far.
Follow-up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Richie.
Thank you. So the second question would be the timing of having this work done, and then if the advisory panel is going to meet, which it sounds like they're going to, when that would happen, and then if they would have additional options, and if that's the case, would those then go to the technical committee? And then finally, if when we get to August, after the public has given input, then what happens then if there are new alternatives that the public has brought forward that have not been run yet. So I have this concern of this continuing process and continuing work for the technical committee, and that this goes along such that we never get to the point where we make a decision.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to put more work on you, Katie, but this graph is very easy to understand, but with a lot of the motions yesterday including a trophy fish, which I'm sure would bring these numbers down significantly, and I'd really like to see those numbers too.
I mean, of course, we've already, you guys have already tasked us to do that, so that's going to happen. But it's not as simple as going back to this analysis and tweaking it a little. It's going to take a lot more time.
Dave?
This table is really helpful. It might have saved us quite a bit of time yesterday, because now you can see what works, what doesn't work, and why you chose the ones that are in the addendum. And just to clarify, this is two fish within the slot, and so the alternative that you're going to work on would present it this way, so that, to Richie's point, you can see what works, what doesn't work, and I think that'll be really helpful for the document.
Adam?
Since I was one of the people that put up another option yesterday, I think if it helps the technical committee, I'm interested in the 28 to 32, 33, and 34 with a minimum size for the upper fish of 36, 38, and 40 inches. And if there is consensus around the room that we basically limit it to those options for review, the slot limit would be 28 to 32, 28 to 33, and 28 to 34, and the minimum size for the trophy fish of 36, 38, and 40, that might help guide them. I know that was things that I've discussed with a lot of fishermen that we would look at as options, and I'm not looking for an infinite number of options. I don't really think the fishing community wants to either. I think really the important thing is just to let them evaluate a slot fish plus a trophy fish, and that's really the idea that we want put forth in the addendum for their comment.
Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find that most of the people that attend these are interested in that percentage of reduction, and so I do think that a table will provide us a lot of guidance as we move forward. It's those kind of folks that we usually hear from, and I think they're trying to help us hit the target at the same time, provide opportunity for fishermen.
Richie?
Thank you. Is there, it wasn't clear to me whether the technical committee is going to come up with options for the 10% a year reduction, or whether that's going to be up to the states to provide the technical committee if that passes. And I guess my concern is then how does the public give input on that without knowing, what sizes would be in the regulations?
originally, I was hoping that people might come up with some ideas here, but like we've come up with ideas for meeting the 1-year reduction here, so that we would have something they would analyze. But if you want to task the technical committee to come up with those ideas, that's fine.
But follow-up?
Let me get Mike's response, and then I'll let you follow up.
Yeah, so when we break down the reduction into the 3 years and determine what that percentage is, I think we can start matching that percentage with tables like this that show what options would achieve the percent reduction that is associated with a 3-year time frame as opposed to the 1 year. So, and then structuring the documents so that it's clear what options would achieve the 3-year time frame and what options would achieve the 1-year time frame.
Tom?
Yeah, just to provide my perspective, I think, basically based on the decisions yesterday of the board, I see that we're looking to provide the public an opportunity to comment on three options. One is status quo, one is to reduce the target within 1 year, and one is to reduce the target within 3 years. And hopefully the document can be structured to explain that to the public so they can weigh in on that part of it. And then when they decide on what time frame they get into it, they look at these types of scenarios. I think we've talked a lot about size limit, slot limits, creel limits, and we spent a lot of time yesterday trying to guess at what our stakeholder preferences are and not having the technical analysis to determine even if they meet the reductions. When we left here yesterday, I got the sense that the board identified what kind of tools we were interested in, and I was hopeful that the technical committee, the PDT, and the advisory panel could take that information and begin putting together a package that could come back to the board in August that we could look at and have better input from a technical perspective, from our stakeholder perspective, and with maybe a more well-rounded PDT, we'd be having an easier conversation on identifying what to take out for public comment. And it sounded like yesterday, deferring that to the August meeting would still allow the states to implement action in 2015. So we spent a lot of time yesterday. I was thinking maybe a more efficient process would be is to use the input that we've talked about on the tools and task the PDT to work with the advisory panel and the technical committee to put together a suite of options, including tables like this, that we could more closely examine in August.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to sort of add on to what Tom is saying, I think the other thing that we did when we were going through when the board was working through some pretty difficult situations in Menhaden was they set up a working group with, like half a dozen or so commissioners, and they weren't a decision-making body. They were just sort of a sounding board for the PDT to come back with different ideas. And I think if we could, if the board wants to pursue something like that and divide it up between a couple, Bay representatives, Northern Coast, Mid-Coast, and, a Southern rep, something along those lines may work to get out of this. Because I think it's, as yesterday proved, it's kind of hard to come up with all the options, through the motion process here with this big of a group.
Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not convinced that either the board or necessarily the staff understand what Tom's intention was in the second motion relative to the phase-in, whether he's talking about a 3-step phase-in to the harvest cuts, or whether he's talking about a 3-year time to delivery of reaching the F target with 50% probability, because they're very different things. When staff first explained it, they talked about this was a percent reduction lower than 32 or 31, which would achieve your F target in 3 years. That's what time lag. But I think Tom was talking about, no, I want to see the harvest cuts phased in, so that 32% is achieved in 10 increment bites over the course of 3 years, and then there's a time to F attainment associated with that. We don't know what it is. Those are two very different interpretations of the motion, and I'm not sure that I certainly don't understand which one it is, and if And if the staff doesn't, they're not going to be able to work these options in terms of delay, the phase-in option.
I thought when that question was brought up that we tried to clarify that with the maker of the motion, and the maker of the motion said the latter is what you described, what Tom had described. That was
I just heard Tom today say, following up, sorry, Mr. Chairman,
okay,
that he was talking about attainment of the target, delayed attainment of the target within 3 years. That goes back to, I think, what the staff and I originally had the conversation about. So maybe it's just a matter of mixing terminology, but we better know which one for sure it is, because the latter one we're talking about is ill-defined right now for the technical people, because they don't know what they don't know the total reduction, how those 3 bytes are supposed to sum to, nor has the board specified what comfort they have in terms of how long it takes to get to your F target. So one of those two has to be specified in order for options to be constructed.
Mark, I thought I understood, but now you're making me think that I didn't understand. I thought we were going to take, that we were looking at a 32% reduction in harvest to attain our F over a, how many year period? 2. 32% was for 2 years. 2 years. So then we would take that and the changes in over the 3 years, and again, the maker of the motion, the way I understood it after his clarification was, okay, we're going to make adjustments to our management plan in year 1 that's going to result in 11% reduction in harvest, and then the second year is going to amount, there are going to be changes to the management program that will result in now a 22% reduction in harvest over whatever our terminal year was. And then the third year, you'd have a third management program that would get you to the final 10%. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
Just to clarify, as the maker of the motion, that you captured it correctly, and just to add that to say it's at 11%, that'd be a minimum. The state could take more action that first year if they wanted to, but that was the methodology that I was intended by my motion. Thanks.
So is the PDT clear on that? Okay. Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This just reinforces for me the idea that there should be incremental approach to this. This reminds me of all the efforts the Commission has taken on summer flounder with states previously, where you start out knowing there's a certain target, and in this case it's number of fish, and you have to either reduce or liberalize, and very often that doesn't really work out, but eventually, given a couple of tries at it, sometimes 2 or 3 tries, you eventually get your management to where it should be. So with this situation, no one's talking about what happens after 1 year if the fishing mortality rate target is not met. We have to go in a little bit blindly and say that the approach is to get to that target, and then later on there'll be a reevaluation, I'm sure, but this adds a little bit more credence to, maybe not just taking one fell swoop reduction.
Okay, we've had a suggestion here of maybe reorganizing the document into the 3-step approach versus the 1-step approach, and then having a table of options under the different size limits, and the different slot limits, and I'm not sure that we could do much with one fish. We couldn't really have that much change in the one fish creel limit, but have that, and then potentially put together a working group was suggested by the executive director that would work with the PDT and the technical committee to help guide this, and then bring back a document that would be in a different structure than we have right now. The only thing I'd like to, if the board would like to go in that direction, I think I'd like to go down to the commercial section and get a little bit of board guidance on some of the commercial options we have here to provide to the PDT. But let me hear from the board. Go ahead, Dave.
I can picture that document getting really difficult to present and understand for the public, and you know, being faced with a choice of, you know, pay your taxes now or pay them 3 years from now. Most people will wait 3 years. I almost wonder if we should just make that decision. This is a 3-year plan, or this is we're doing it next year. Decision here now, and then create the document that we need to deliver that timetable.
Lewis?
We did that for Black Drum, if you recall. We had a phase-in, and I believe, though, everybody elected to go ahead and implement everything right away. But we did have that option in the Black Drum plan. So I think that might help clarify the document a lot more if we had that approach. In that way, if there were states that wanted to go ahead and take the action right away, there's nothing preventing them from doing that. But that could simplify the document a lot if that's what the board wants to do. But I agree with your decision to move on. I mean, we've got to roll on this, and we've got people that are going to have to be leaving for other meetings that haven't started yet. So if we could get moving on make a decision there and then move into the commercial stuff so we can give some direction, that would be great.
What's the pleasure of the board? I mean, I think because of the way we've set that up, that would require a motion. I mean, right now it's an option, and you know, clearly that's a major management decision, a major policy decision, because what Amendment 6 says is one thing, and now we're, because of this trigger has been met, we're changing that policy that's in an amendment. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think at the end of the day, if we just decide we're not going to follow through on what our commitment was last year, to be well on our way to recovery and implementation January of 2015, and come up with anything that's going to dilute the direction we're going, I think we will totally lose the credibility of the public. We said this is the way we're going to go. I think Mr. O'Connell has a great idea. If you want to add it as an option, but not to take away the plan that we were going with. What convinced me to say this is the charts that were put together, that Kate put together. It calls for 2 fish for either coastwide or Chesapeake. What's the problem? You call out for slot sizes. People want 2 fish. Well, if that's the case in New York, they don't want 2 fish. Surf guys have got about 4,500 names to say they only want to have 1 fish greater than 32. They've made a commitment no matter what we do. Even if the size is smaller, they're going to take 1 fish greater than 32. There is a lot of emotion out there, and to do anything other than what we committed to do, we're going to have mud all over our face and we're going to embarrass ourselves. And I'm not going to want to go back home and tell the people, here's what we did. We did a great job. I will also commit to you that we've got in New York a whole bunch of people listening to this webinar. And they're seeing where the action's coming from, and they're getting a sense, I'm convinced, of what we're trying to do. We're trying to accommodate everyone with slot sizes and so on. I supported the motions that Adam made because they're options to go out there, understanding full well that Kate and Mike would come up with statistics that would show either yes, they're viable or they're not. So that when the document goes out to the public, it will in fact show the public that these are all the options that were considered. And they can throw anything at us that they want at that point in time. Doesn't matter. The technical committee, the PDT, and advisory panel, and we have agreed to it, that they're either doable or not doable. So I would see Mr. O'Connell's option as an option, and not mess around with what our commitment was to move forward with trying to reduce the mortality on these fish. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have Dave, then Tom.
Yeah, to sort of move the decision along, I'm going to make a motion that we include in the public hearing document only options that achieve a 31%, approximately 31% reduction as shown in the draft public hearing document. Is that a 2-year to rebuild? So a 2-year rebuild strategy.
Yes, that would achieve, the 32% achieves the reduction in, or achieves the F target reduction in 2 years.
So to achieve a 31% reduction and a 2-year time frame. Thanks, Kate. You got it.
Richie, you're seconding it? Discussion on the motion, Tom Foti, and then Tom O'Connor.
Yeah, this basically undoes the motion we made yesterday, so there's a continuation of meeting. I don't know if you need a 2/3 vote or not, but we can discuss that. You know, the credibility is that we're basically trying to accommodate fishermen. New York has always wanted one fish. When we opened the fishery, when there's plenty of fish, their surf fishermen wanted one fish. That's the reality in New York. It is not the reality of other states. And this is a compact of all the states that we try to accommodate our fishermen, whatever they need. And maybe they will come with one fish when we go to public hearing. But I'd like to put a broad span of options on the table. And, Pat, we do that with every plan. And what I always amaze that after we come out with all the options, go to public hearings, we come back and we just find a new one the day we implement an addendum. So I have no problem, and our credibility always stands as it is. We protect the striped bass. We've done a good job. People have different, you sit 10 striped bass fishermen in a room and they have 10 different opinions how you're supposed to manage striped bass. It has always been the case, and that's been the case for 35 years that I've been dealing with striped bass management. So I have no problem basically going out with a bunch of options. And I think this overrides with all the time we spent yesterday, so I can't support this.
Okay. Because this would essentially override a motion that was made yesterday, I need to ask you, and I don't know, were you on the prevailing side, David, yesterday, when we made this motion to add a second option? Because if so, you can make the motion, but it's still going to require a 2/3 vote to override it.
Yeah, the motion to achieve reduction over 3 years, with each year achieving a third. Yeah, I was on the prevailing side.
Okay. So now we have a motion on the board to reconsider. I think this really needs to be a motion first to reconsider. A motion to reconsider, and then once we make that, whether we vote that up or down, then you can make the change. So this is just, is this a debatable motion? Okay, we have a ruling here. This is actually under Robert's Rules of Order, this motion to reconsider only requires a majority vote, and it needs to be, and it can be debated. So I'm going to take debate on this motion, and a motion to reconsider. We need to actually make correct the motion. Needs to be a move to reconsider. Yeah, Bob?
Yeah, I think Kate will pull up the old motion, but what we need to do is reconsider, actually she's done it, reconsider that motion that's on the board.
Yeah. Move to reconsider the motion on the board. Yes.
I need you to read the motion that's on the board. You got a motion to consider, you said it's on the board, but I don't have in the record what's on the board.
Doug, I think the wording would be, just the motion from yesterday, insert the words, move to reconsider the motion to put options, and then carry on all the language from yesterday, because we're simply reconsidering that motion. And all the wording that's in the second paragraph there, I think you can delete.
Before I read this, is this debate on the motion? Quick comment.
Yeah, I'm hoping to save time both now and for the technical committee, so I hope, we've talked about this a lot, and I hope we don't have to debate whether to reconsider. I think, we can vote it up or down, and let's keep moving.
Okay, the motion, move to reconsider, the motion that states move to put options in Addendum 4 to achieve the necessary reduction over the 3 years, with each year achieving a third of that reduction level. And this motion is made by Mr. Simpson and seconded by Mr. White. Okay, anybody have a burning desire to debate this? Tom?
I guess, first, it's my understanding with this motion, it wouldn't be that we'd be looking at a reduction of like 15% in year 1 and 16% in year 2. This would be 31% right up front. Is that correct?
This would be 31% right off the top.
Yes, we need to tinker. If this passes, then we need to tinker with the motion that was being drafted, because it's intended to go back to the public hearing document, cut harvest 31% to achieve the target F within 2 years. That's my understanding of what the document now says.
So just a follow-up comment then? So, there's been a few comments about, the public sentiment that, we set a charge in October and we're failing that charge. I think it's very important to note that in October we set for the charge to develop bay-specific reference points, and we learned just a week and a half ago that the technical committee was not able to develop those bay-specific reference points. Some of you may not have had a chance to look at some of the analysis with those options that the TC brought forward, but the SCA model approach, which was kind of discounted because it was overly conservative, because it didn't account for the fact that the bay is primarily a male fishery. If that overly conservative option was established for the bay, we would be taking a less than 30% reduction in the bay jurisdictions. And with the lack of those basis-specific reference points, we're looking at taking a 31% reduction in 1 year that's primarily a male fishery. And I think it's very misleading to the public that that level of impact that's going to have significant socioeconomic impacts is going to result in the protection of females that the model was forecasting. As we are changing the reference points that's going out for public comment, I think it's fair to give the public an opportunity to provide input on the time frame to achieve those to achieve the reduction in F rates to the target level, particularly when we have the SARC report that recommended that the board update the 2013 assessment before taking action in 2015. And we may find out that we're much better than we are right now. And we, as Tom Flaherty has previously stated, that we're going to take a 31% reduction and maybe in a position a year from now or later this year to find out that that level of reduction was not warranted. So I really encourage the board's support to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on the time frame, and we can make the decision later on this year on how we want to go forward with 2015. So I encourage the board's support to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this? Up or down? Do you need time to caucus? Okay. All states that are in favor, raise their right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 5 to 9? Yeah. Any abstentions? Any no votes? We're down a vote. Motion fails. Okay, about that working group. So we're going to have 2 paths that this can take. Is the board comfortable with developing a working group that will work with the PDT and the technical committee to develop a document that will have options in both that would have a reduction in 3 years and the reduction in 1 year? Okay. Is there any objections to doing that path? Seeing none, can I have volunteers for that? Okay. Rob, Adam, Kelly, Tom, and that's good. What do you got? I've got John, and then obviously myself.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Okay, I have Rick Bellavance, Rob O'Reilly, Adam, Kelly, Tom O'Connor, John, and myself will be on that committee. Now, the only other thing at this point, in the interest of time, is I'd like to go down to the commercial area reduction table and take a look at that. If we can put that up on the table, are there any things, any guidance that the board would like to give to them, particularly anything you'd not want to see in there, or any modifications or any additions? Lewis.
Yeah, if they get the commercial stuff up there, I have a motion that I would like to offer. And that would be I would make a motion that we eliminate option D, which basically results in a North Carolina quota of 0. Is it C or D? C. I'm sorry, C. I can't see because of Tony's head. Oh! I did that, didn't I? Sorry, Tony.
We have a motion and a second to that motion to eliminate option C from this table. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I will read the motion. Who seconded it?
I didn't hear a second.
Russ Allen, that's right. Russ Allen. Okay. Let's vote on this motion. All states in favor, raise their right hand. Any opposition to the motion? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Anything else? Lewis.
Just one more point that I would like some consideration given to, and I'm not really exactly sure how to address this, but North Carolina's had issues over the last 3 years at least, where looking at the other states are landing their striped bass. North Carolina's not. Last year we had 0 landings. That was why we had the 2000, why option C showed that our reduction from 2013 would be 0, because we didn't catch any. And the year before that we didn't catch any, and the year before that we really didn't catch any. So we're looking at, I mean, we've not harvested almost 1 million pounds of striped bass over the last 3 years, but are looking at a cut. And that's inconsistent with the way all the other states, are going to be taking a reduction because they've actually harvested fish. I don't know what the answer is, Mr. Chairman, but I can assure you that those will be significant comments coming out of North Carolina for the final indent draft. And so I just wanted that concern to be on the record, and I'm going to try to come up with some option that won't disadvantage us tremendously, but dropping us from 480 to 330 when we haven't caught any fish in 3 years is not going to sit well back home. So just a comment, and I don't intend on taking any action at this time.
Okay. On the addendum, John Clark, you had your hand up, and then Rob O'Reilly. We still have other, I'm going to remind you, we have a couple things that we need to do outside of this addendum before we adjourn here. So
I'll make this as brief as possible, Mr. Chairman. I had an option I would like added to the commercial options that and the option is to return the quota to the levels that were, the commercial quotas that were in place during the last year of Amendment 5, and I guess if we can get a second on that, I can just discuss why.
Seconded by Steve Train. Go ahead.
Okay. Like I said, I'll keep this quick. The state quotas under Amendment 5 were based on a target F, so all state quotas were calculated using the same methodology. When Amendment 6 came in, the decision was made to base the quotas on average landings from 1972 to 1979. This worked out to a big increase in quotas for most of the states, but certain states, such as Delaware, did not receive any increase in their quota during the passage of Amendment 6. So I just looked back at the quotas under the last year of Amendment 5, and if we reinstituted those quotas, it would be a 34% reduction coastwide. So under this amendment, I further modified it to ask the TC to adjust the reductions to the states that would take reductions under this to achieve a 31% reduction. And as I said, just looking at it as a fairness issue to states that did not see any increase in their quotas under Amendment 6. Thanks.
Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I will read the motion while you're caucusing. Move to add to the commercial quota allocation the option of reinstating the final Amendment 5 coastal commercial allocations as approved in 2001, because this would result in a 34% reduction from the Amendment 6 allocations. The technical committee shall adjust the state reductions to achieve a 31% reduction from the Amendment 6 allocations. The motion is made by Mr. Clark and seconded by Mr. Train. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my own edification, maybe I'm the only one that's confused here, but could one of the staff members put up the state quotas under Amendment 5 so we all know what we're voting on?
I did send you that chart. If we don't have the table handy, I could just go state by state what the reductions, based on my calculations, would be. It would, New Hampshire would be 30%, Massachusetts 30%, Rhode Island 45%, Connecticut 0%, New York 44%, New Jersey 30%, Delaware 0%, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina would all be about 30% reductions.
Does that satisfy you, Mr. Borden? Is that good enough for, or do you want to see the actual figures?
I'd still prefer to see the actual figures, but if I'm the only one that thinks that, please proceed.
While we're waiting for this, I've got Rob and Tom and Richie.
Yeah, I appreciate the motion from Delaware, but I recall that in starting Amendment 5, it was 97,000 in Virginia, and now we're 184,000, so that would be more than a 30% reduction.
Tom? Richie?
While we're waiting, does anyone remember why there was this change from Amendment 5 to Amendment 6? What was the reasoning behind it? I don't remember.
I think my memory of it is that that we went to Amendment 6, we had a recovered stock, and then we felt that we could actually increase the quotas by back to the original 72 to 79 levels that we had. I think this was an increase in quota because the commercial fishermen had been constrained for a number of years, and the recreational fishery had been able to, under the current management, were able to increase their harvest, and so we were giving the opportunity to increase the commercial quota. And another historian, Roy Miller, would you like to hop in on that?
I think you're exactly correct, Doug. While we're bringing up the table, I wanted to just raise a related issue, if I may. There were some, when we embarked upon reopening the striped bass fisheries in 1990, we made some arguments at the time which still hold some validity. For instance, for conservation equivalency for Delaware Bay gillnet fishery, 20-inch minimum size for commercial gillnets for striped bass. The argument at the time was it was a bycatch in the shad fishery. That fishery still exists. That gear still exists. How it's prosecuted hasn't changed much over the years. I hope we don't have to revisit those 24-year-old issues again. And convince the rest of the board that conservation equivalency is called for. If the commercial fishery has to be reduced 31%, so be it. That's an easy reduction in poundage. But to revisit all those old arguments for conservation equivalency, I think would be counterproductive, and I just hope we don't have to go through that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
There you go. Tom?
Well, since we're using Table 5 under Amendment 5, I'd like to put back that we're producing areas in some of the years that was basically taken away in the dead of night when some of us left a meeting in Rhode Island many years ago and did away with Hudson River as being a producing area and the Delaware River as a producing area. So we're going back to this. I know it's not going to make any difference, but I'd just like to have it on the record that we are producing areas since it was taken away from Delaware, New York, New Jersey during that period of time on Amendment 6 after Bruce Friedman and I left to catch a plane. So,
Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little clarification. So if we were to agree to this change, would then the 31% reduction be based on those final Amendment 5 allocations, or would this take care of the reductions that need to take place?
John, can you clarify that for?
Yeah, well, because, as I said, the total would be more like 34%. If you look at the total reduction, I asked that the TC adjust the reductions to the states that would take reductions to make it a 31% rather than a 34% reduction. So, it's 3% difference there, not much.
Okay, this is to add an option. Yes, Paul?
So just so I'm clear, so does that mean that essentially the reductions are capped at 31%? In other words, if a state is at 45%, they're not going to have that reduction. They're going to get a 31% reduction. Is it going to cap it?
No, because we wouldn't get, I think to get to the, I didn't check all the ramifications here, but yeah, some states, based on what those quotas were, yeah, it would be more than a 31% reduction.
Okay, everybody okay with that clarification? Okay, are you ready to vote? All states in favor of this motion, raise their hand. One, two. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Okay, 11. Abstentions? 2. So that's 15. Motion fails 2 to 11 to 2. Anything else on this? Okay. So we're all done with Addendum 4 for now, and thank you. Russ, do you have something on?
Yeah, just a clarification under Section 3.3.2, Issue 7, Option B, where it states, and the Delaware Bay shad gillnet fishery. That's Delaware Bay gillnet fishery. I don't think we need to open up a commercial fishery in New Jersey under this option. So it's just a clarification thing.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. And Dave?
I may have napped, but I want to make sure that, did we cover the Chesapeake Bay options?
As far as commercial?
Yeah.
I've asked for any changes or...
Okay, so the one, option D, that's like option C in the coastwide that Lewis had removed, you Chesapeake Bay folks are okay with?
Rob?
Thank you, David. No, not okay with that. I mean, as I stated yesterday, we have ITQs in Virginia, so really it would be an extra situation for us to take that type of reduction on the landings. So I really, when I was paying attention to Lewis, was thinking that took care of us, but thank you. I would move to remove that option for the Chesapeake Bay.
So that's, your motion is to remove option C from the Chesapeake Bay commercial quota options.
No, it's option D. Option
Okay.
D, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second? Dave Simpson? Discussion? Seeing no discussion, I'll read the motion and I'll give you time to caucus on it. It's, for those who are looking for numbers, it's on page 13 of the document. Move to remove option D under section 3.3.1.3, Chesapeake Bay. Motion by Mr. O'Reilly, seconded by Mr. Simpson. Okay, all states in favor of this, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All those opposed? Abstentions? Still came up one short. Motion carries. Oh, sorry about that. A null vote. So the motion carries 13 to 1 to 1. Is there anything else the board would like to take? Is this something that we might be able to take up with the working group? Or okay, go ahead. Bill.
What about, is issue 7 just rolled through here? Stays as is?
Commercial size limits. Is there anybody that wants to change or make additions or take things out? Seeing none, we'll move on. I think that's the last section of this document. We have a working group, and we will move forward. Thank you very much for your work here. We do have a couple other items that we do need to take up. First of all, we need to review and populate the advisory panel membership. If you go to the original material, there's I'm going to let Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there's 2 people to consider that were nominated, William Hall from Virginia and Kyle Doughton from Connecticut.
Dave.
Move to include these 2 individuals on the AP.
Is there a second? Tom Fody. Any discussion on this? You want me to read it?
He didn't say anything.
Okay. Move to add William Hall from Virginia and Kyle Doughton from Connecticut to the Striped Bass Advisory Panel. The motion was made by Mr. Simpson and seconded by Mr. Fody. Is there any... Robert?
Did you... Never heard you call me Robert, but I'm going to respond to that.
Rob.
No, Robert's okay. It's my name. I just look for Robert Boyles when you say that, but he's not here. Bob Failstead was the advisor for Virginia for 20 years, and he called me and said, I'm 80 now. I think it's time that someone else take over. And Bill Hall from the Eastern Shore of Virginia has about 40 years of experience. Just a very involved individual in the recreational fisheries. So we're really excited that Bill Hall will be here, and we thank Bob.
Yes, we thank Bob. And do you want to make a statement about your advisory panel?
I'm glad you did, Robert, and that reminded me. Fred Felici, same sort of thing, early 80s, and really his for my entire career and before that has been there for us, and I really appreciate all the time he served. And Kyle Doughton will be a great addition. He has strong background in the tackle industry, charter boats. He's a member of our Marine Advisory Group, so I'm sure he'll be a good addition to the group.
Okay, with those glowing reviews, is there any objections? Seeing none, they are on the board. Next agenda item is I'm looking for a vice chair. Are there any nominations? Pat Kelleher.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to elect Jim Gilmore from the state of New York as vice chair.
Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I second that. Move to close nominations and cast one vote on behalf of Mr. Gilmore.
Are there any objections? Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
I'm speechless, Mr. Chairman. Although I will say that I hope you have this thing done by the time I take over. Thank you.
That's what I thought was going to happen when Tom O'Connell, when I agreed to do it. See what it got me into? Actually, under other business, you're up.
And hopefully this is very quick. The Juvenile Abundance Index in the Hudson River is one of our indicators that we do for recruitment. And there's been a discussion. We currently have a 6-week index, and there's been discussion, I think, for several years about improving the validity of that. So, and what we had proposed was that we would go to a 9-week index with a 13-site subset, and that was brought before the technical committee. We believe this is a more accurate way to do the index, so I have a motion that I would like to put up, and since it's just a technical change, that we just look for board approval under this. So, Mike, if you could put that motion up. And I just move that the board approve revision to the Hudson River Young of the Year sampling program from the 6-week index to a 9-week 13-site subset index as accepted by the technical committee.
We have a second, Tom Fode. Again, this has already been run by the technical committee, and they've approved it. Discussion on the motions. Tom Fode.
Yeah. I just would like to thank New York to find the money available to do this in these hard times, to basically add something on. It's really difficult, and I really like to thank them for stepping up to the plate.
Mark?
Yeah, just curious, has the technical committee run this revised index through the SCA model to see what, if the results would be any meaningful differences between what we had in the last Nelson report using the finalized data versus this? I'm just curious as to how you examined it.
Katie?
We did not have time to run the complete assessment over again, but we looked at, they showed us basically sort of the old version, and then they went through and recalculated the new version, and the index was very similar. I think it was over 95% correlation between the two, so we would expect minimal differences in the overall assessment model.
Any other questions? Any objections to this? Seeing none, it stands approved. Tom O'Connor, you had a PDT member you wanted to add on to the PDT?
Yes, I would like to move to add Beth Versack from Maryland to the Plan Development Team.
Seconded by Russ. Discussion? Tom?
Yeah, just for knowledge of the board, Beth's committed her career to striped bass, which she's still young in her career, but she's worked in our striped bass program for about 20 years. She served on the TAG and subcommittee, and I think would be a great addition at this point, given where we are in developing Draft Addendum 4. Thanks.
She wasn't that woman that I got a picture of this huge striped bass on your boat there.
She let it go, though, Doug, so...
That was bigger than her, I think. Any objections to this from the board? Seeing none. Wilson, you've got 30 seconds.
I need just a little bit more than that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. First of all, appreciation to Dr. Daniel and to Tom O'Connell and to Bob Beal, all of whom wrote letters of endorsement for a proposal that Roger Ullison and I submitted to the SK program for matching funds for the existing North Carolina Coastal Recreational Fishing License grant that we have that funded the 2013 hook and line tagging and cooperative winter tagging cruise off North Carolina. I'm pleased to report that we got a letter back from the National Marine Fisheries Service advising us that they are recommending that our SK proposal be funded. So what that means is, hopefully, all this is going to come together. That we'll have fun. Since we applied for 2014 and 15, we didn't get notice until the end of March. So obviously, we couldn't do it in 2014. But I'm told that once the NIMS NOAA General Council approves the grant, then we can ask for a no-cost extension to move it to 2015 and 2016. And Lewis is working with us to move our Cruffle grant to the same 2 years. So hopefully, I'll be able to to report at the August meeting that we've gotten all the details ironed out, and we should be able to conduct both hook and line and research vessel-based trawling for tagging striped bass off the coast of North Carolina and Virginia in 2015 and 2016. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That was 35 seconds, but so you owe me 5 seconds the next meeting. All right, anything else before this board? All right, thank you very much. It's been a long, hard couple days here, and I appreciate all the work you put in on this. So we'll see you in August.
Just